Welcome, everybody. It is 17 October 2023. I'm your friendly host, Debbie Levitt from Delta CX, and we are live for the Q&A AMA of the week. As we do, we will have a special guest joining us today who I will chuck on the screen in just a moment. But as always, I want to thank our Patreon members. We've got a Patreon now. We're asking everybody, stop throwing the money at YouTube. Throw it over on Patreon. Patreon.com/CXCC. You can join for free, and it's kind of our mailing list, or we do have paid tiers starting at $1 American per month. It's a bargain. So come and join and join the community. So, before I introduce our guest, just a reminder that yes, we're actually live, and you can ask your questions over here at deltacx.com/links, which you can ask anonymously, or you can ask right here in the chat. I am watching YouTube and LinkedIn, and I think Twitch chat. So send them over. We've got no questions right now, so you will be first. No waiting. And let's bring in our guest today and learn all about him. It's Tom. He's back, and he's going to be back again in January for our webinar, one of our webinars in Google Meet. But Tom, for those who haven't seen you before, who are you?
Hi, I'm Tom. So I've been in design and research and UX, all the UX fun stuff for quite a long time, about 25 years now. And that's me. That's my background. I've done everything ranging from your classic usability testing through to your huge scale A/B testing, through to influencing strange leadership decisions, innovating new products, optimizing old products, all of the stuff. More recently, I've made a card deck, which is all sorts of fun. It's called Innovation Tactics. The name hints that it's about the innovation side, but really it comprises lots and lots of research flavored methods. So if that's something that sounds interesting, I can also give a link with a bit of money off.
Please do. We are happy to have our guests plug things. So, spell your name so people can find you on LinkedIn and let them know where they can find your stuff.
Absolutely. So spell my name. It's TomKerwin, Tom Kerwin. I'm right there on LinkedIn, easy enough to find. I'll have to put the link in my description, but otherwise it's bit.ly/innovation-10. That gets you 10% off the deck, which is not cheap, I'll warn you now, but
Let's see if I can recreate that. bit.ly/innovation.
So bit.ly, so the little shortened link.
Yeah, let me see. Let me try putting this on the screen. You tell me if I'm close. Let's see. bit.ly/innovation-10. Everybody do that.
Yeah. And I should let you know, you get 10% off. I get a little kickback, but we're all happy that way.
Yes. Buy the thing. Hello, Malika. So yeah, we don't have any questions yet today, which is rare. I do find that as the year goes on, when we get closer to the end of the year and the holidays, the streams get a little quiet. But hopefully we'll have some people waking up soon. I saw already handful of people were tuned in live on LinkedIn. Come on, LinkedIners. There's 10 of you watching live. You've got a question for me or Tom. It's your big chance. No waiting. Hey, Amy. Amy probably doesn't have a question. Amy can answer the questions. Let's see. I am just checking if there are any hidden, sneaky questions anywhere, since I have to track them down in a whole bunch of places. This is very strange. We have no questions. This is rare. Has this happened to us before? You've been here a few times.
Definitely hasn't happened when I've been on before. Yeah.
No, it's usually an avalanche of questions, and we have to ask if you can stay late. So I don't know where everybody's gone. Hi, Mike. We've got some of our regulars here, which is great to see, but we've got no questions. So somebody post something. We're here to help you. Once in a while I get a question like, are you really live? Yes.
That's a good question. We really are live and alive.
Right. And just a reminder for those of you marking your calendars, Tom will be back on January 17 doing one of our Wednesday webinars with us, free webinar on Google Meet. You can find the link. Let's see, which way do I point? This way, cxcc.to/events. Hello, Abdel Kader. And still no questions, Tom. I am so sorry. We're going to end up just having like a tea together. So it's just going to be a social hour, perhaps. Let's see, what am I drinking? Black cherry flavored water.
Nice. I'm on the end of a coffee.
Got it. Okay, we do have a question from Amy, so we're going to get this one on the screen, and I'm definitely throwing this one at you. Okay, let's make it big. Font big, and presto. Would you talk about influencing stakeholders?
Absolutely, yes. We like talking. Oh, and how can designers work on their skills in influencing stakeholders?
We'll add
that.
That
is a very good question. Yeah. It's sort of a big topic, isn't it? Because it is, especially if you're coming from the research side of things, influencing the stakeholders is the whole job. And you're using research as a way of doing that. But one of the things that I would say many researchers get wrong, and something that I certainly got wrong when I was younger, is I thought that the way to influence stakeholders was through using evidence. And yet it never worked. More evidence didn't change anyone's minds, didn't change any decisions. I sat delivering just mountains of evidence, incontrovertible, and still the car crash happened, still the silly decisions were made, still it just didn't go anywhere, and I was tearing my hair out. And I think I had to, the place you start influencing, I think, is by realizing that it's not about the evidence. And one of the important things to do, I think, is to become influenceable. So if you are certain that you're right and you're trying to persuade the other person by bashing them over the head with more evidence, they're going to get more and more entrenched. And when that all started to change for me was when I started to have less of a dog in the fight, for want of a better metaphor, to actually realize, well, maybe I'm wrong. How would we know if I'm wrong? And how would we know if you're wrong? And how would we know if we're right? And what would being wrong mean? Would it matter if we're wrong? Or is it actually fine? Do we need to be right about this? Or can we get by without being right? And all of those questions start you, I think, in a more collaborative space, a space where you're being genuinely open to learning, and you're opening the door to the person that you're talking with, the stakeholder in question. Which is sort of a wide way of talking around things. The metaphor of the elephant comes in useful. And there's a brilliant article by a chap called Venkatesh Rao, who it's in one of his books. It's a paid newsletter article that you can't easily get at, but there's a chunk from it that I think is incredibly relevant. We all know the old story about the blind men feeling the elephant, don't we? Sort of blind people feeling an elephant, and one person is touching the trunk, and they think this is a hose or a tree or something. The leg is a tree, the tail is a rope, all that sort of stuff. And what you have when you're coming as a researcher is you're saying, hey, look, we've got a rope problem. I can help you solve this rope problem. But your stakeholder is feeling a leg, and they're saying, lovely. When I have a rope problem, I'll call you. But right now I've got a tree trunk problem. And so I'm going to carry on doing what I'm doing. And the reality is, none of the people feeling the elephant are right, nor is the person who's standing back looking the whole elephant. You can't see the whole elephant. You can only feel bits of the elephant. But one of the people feeling the elephant is a hippo. And whatever the hippo's frame is, that's the frame that you're going to be working in. And so the best way to influence that hippo is to come and stand next to the hippo and feel the problem the way the hippo's feeling the problem. And then you can start to move from there. If you just stand there going, but look, it's a rope problem, you're not even speaking the same language, and you're just going to get stuck. So that's a sort of a high level view of where I'd take to start.
I like that.
What
I
did you
want
say,
to
Debbie?
add to it if you don't mind. There's a lot of great
Of
stuff in
course.
there. Hard to disagree. I don't disagree. Oh, Brandon, good to see you. We'll get your question up next after we go through Amy's question. Put that on the list. So, the way that I see it is when I think about my interactions with stakeholders, yeah, stand next to the hippo. When I think about my interactions with stakeholders, I definitely am evidence driven, but I do try to work first on some of the things Tom was talking about what kind of information do these people need to know to do their job well or to be seen in a positive light by the people judging them? What kind of information do they need to create positive outcomes, sometimes just for their own jobs, for their own success? They may or may not care about the user, but what do they need to inform them, to help them? So those of you who've been hanging out on the CXCC channel over on YouTube or taking our webinars or reading my book, then you're familiar with what I'm calling the discovery phase. Knowledge quadrant, sorry to cover Tom, it'll only be temporary. That was episode 196. You can always go to YouTube and write CXCC 196. You'll get the episode. And I've been running this before the every project kickoff and before every research project, and everyone has the opportunity to put up on the Miro board what questions do they want answered. What are some of their guesses or assumptions? What are some of their opinions? What's some things they think they know? What's some data that might be outdated, especially with the world changing with pandemic and economy? And I find that when you can take the questions people have, assuming they're in scope and make sense, and answer them in X weeks or however long your research takes, that's where the light bulb really goes off. Wow, I had this question. You got me the answer. You have the data to back it. You showed me video clips or quotes or whatever it was. It wasn't just a manipulated survey. You gave me some interesting qual stuff. And so, for example, at my current job, we're just writing the report now for the first evaluative study because I'm just 2 months into the job. So we're just now finishing our first evaluative study. And the data and analytics guy wanted to meet with me ahead of time. He's like, I can't wait for your report. I want to know, is the data we're pulling onto this page the right data, or do I need to get my team on building different API calls or something like that? And I was like, no, I'm able to tell you that the data was it was the right information at the right time in the right place for our target user. Keep doing what you're doing. And they were just so thrilled with that. And so, and how easy was that? Someone had a question. I knew it ahead of time because I collected their questions. I made sure that we found that out during our study. And now I can answer that. And so I feel like that is my chance to be influential because I'm giving you, it's part of what UX is. I'm giving you what you need.
Yeah, love it.
I'm empowering you.
I want to build on top of that because I think that is such a great way to go. When you've got these people people know the questions they want to answer, and you can work with them and just answer those questions instead of sitting in your own box answering only your questions that you like to answer. One of the things that I have seen be tricky is, especially when you get into the world of assumption mapping, which I'm sure you've touched on as well, is I've seen it over and over again that often the assumptions that end up tripping people over are the ones that they don't realize are assumptions because they are things they think are facts or are strongly held beliefs or are things they don't even realize are things that they believe but they do. And so I've actually got a card which is all about how you do this sort of stuff. So Unlock Innovation is what I call what Pipdex calls a recipe card. And on it, it's just a guide to several different other methods that I've found really work to build that influence. And there's kind of a theme in all of them that you're not telling people what's going on. You are collaborating with them to understand what evidence it is that they need and what questions it is that they really, really care about. And so one that's interesting, I think, that I start most projects with when I can,
Time
is this time machine, which we've talked about before. But
Right.
that one is really, you work with the stakeholders and the team to expose all of the hidden hopes and fears. So when you're starting a project, there's all these hopes and fears. It's very hard socially to actually raise them sometimes. And various people on the team are worried about different things. They're afraid of not having enough time to finish, or they're afraid of not doing the work well enough, building the wrong thing. They're afraid of harming the users in various ways. Maybe we build something that people want and it works, but it actually hurts the users in the end. Teams, I've worked with loads of teams who are really worried about this. And then you've got the stakeholders and the managers, and maybe they're worried, more worried, that it's not going to be delivered on time when they really needed it because they promised it to some client that they hadn't told us about, etc., etc. By getting all these out on the table, we can start to understand what different people are afraid of and find our way through that. We also, if you're a researcher, it's incredibly powerful, or a designer, because now you know what your stakeholders and what your teammates are most afraid of. And you can design your research to either show, well, actually, those fears are founded. We are going to be in trouble if we carry on going the way we're going. Or actually, look, it's fine. Like you had, your stakeholder was afraid that the data that they currently had available for the dashboard was maybe not the right data, and maybe it was going to scupper them because there's this one thing they needed to fix the API for. You were able to say, no, you're fine, you're good to go. And that enables everyone to go forwards with more confidence, which is just delightful.
Thank
So yeah,
you.
answer one of
Yeah.
those.
Great answers. Thank you. And we did get an anonymous question. I've added you to the end of the list, but first we've got Brandon's question. And Brandon says, "Good morning. How would a new UX designer trying to land a job show passion and still demonstrate enough competence to be valuable to a hiring manager, company, etc.?"
I think I see where you're coming from with this, but it feels like a bit of a false dichotomy. A sort of, if I'm passionate about this job, then I look like I'm not competent at it or something. Is it the kind of Groucho Marx thing that I wouldn't want to be a member of a club that would have me?
I love Groucho.
Um, he's a proper classic. I suspect some of your audience are too young to know who he is, but let's just
Everyone
bypass
must
that.
look him up. Go ahead.
Um, but yeah, I'm wondering if there's more you could give about precisely what it is you think you've been saying that is failing at these two things.
And
I,
Brandon, have you gotten feedback from an interview or a recruiter or hiring manager that you just didn't seem passionate enough? I think usually they're looking for a competence and things like that. Oh, thanks for subscribing. Thank you to Keisha. Um, yeah, did someone tell you like you're not showing enough passion? I think I think that if you try to show passion, it might come off as I'm trying to show passion. Like I think that when people ask me and probably Tom about our work or UX or our process or why we do this, I think the passion's just natural. I think people just notice we care about this. We're into this. This is in our blood. We don't know what we were. If UX exploded tomorrow, what would we do? I'd have to be someone's backup singer, I guess.
I don't like to think about that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the passion. So to me, the passion should just be natural because you're friendly and enthusiastic. And then usually in an interview, you're just trying to show the competency that you have for whatever level your skills are at.
Yeah, it's important. I think what you're saying there is you don't want to fake either of these things. Be as passionate as you are about the opportunity that you're looking at, and be as competent as you are for that opportunity. Because in a job interview, one of the big mistakes when I was last hiring, I noticed that some candidates would come and all they were trying to do was kind of pass the test and sort of almost trick their way into answering all the questions correctly so that they'd get an offer. But what we were looking for as people doing the hiring was a candidate who was looking for, am I a good fit? Are you a good fit? Will we work well together? Here's what I can do and bring to the table. Here's what I care about doing. Does that match well enough with what you need the person you're hiring to do? And are there gaps? Can we fill those gaps? Or are there gaps where actually I just don't want to do it? And if we could have that conversation with the candidate, then that was so much more productive, because you can quickly get to, do you know what? You're really going to hate it here. Let's not go any further. Or actually, this looks like it could be a really good fit. We can move on now.
Yeah, I think when I think about the interviews I've been in, and I think about the interviews where I've been the hiring manager on the other side, I've rarely walked away going, I just don't think that person showed enough passion. Usually I'm noticing something else about the interview that made me not want to continue with that person. Like sometimes they just don't have an answer for what I think might be a simple question. Like, if you what would be your optimal UX process, or how do you tend to approach your work? I think these are things that people who've done at least one project before have some sort of answer to. And I'm just listening for, do you have a way to do things? How do you describe it to me? What steps do you tend to take or think are important? You don't have to have the exact same process I do. I'm not checking you for that. I'm checking for, do you have an answer? Because I have all kinds of stories of what people have said to me when I ask them that. My favorite being from 2014, when I asked somebody, what's your UX process? And they said, I just opened Adobe Illustrator. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. Like, I meant, what's your approach to UX work? Yeah, I just opened Adobe Illustrator. And I was like,
you're hired.
Yeah, that's not a UX it's a tool. It was much more popular then than it is now, but like that's not a process, that's just a tool. So I thought that was a strange conversation. Brandon says maybe because they don't understand the business. I've never tested somebody on how well they understand the business that we're in. Unless the business requires. I've had conversations with some companies who've said, look, we're in oil and gas. We demand that every UX person be a qualified geologist. Okay, in that case, you need to show that you understand the business and you're a qualified geologist. But other than that, when I'm interviewing people, I'm not testing that you get the business. I assume that's something you're going to learn from working here. What about you, Tom?
Yeah, very similar. I think, so the one thing that's hard when you're interviewing for a role is you cannot know what the hiring manager is really looking for. It's just, if you try and second guess it, you're going to go mad. You're going to tie yourself up in knots. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. I'd say my advice to everyone is generally present the person who the company that you would love to work for would hire, because that way it's a win-win. If you present yourself in your best light, as you will be best for a company that should hire you, and the company says no, well, you probably didn't want to work there anyway. Now, there's one thing I'd say as a caveat for this passion side, where I do remember someone that I knew was a brilliant designer that I'd worked with before, that I referred into a company I was working at. And the other designers ended up rejecting her because they said it just seemed like she was desperate to get out of her current job and didn't really care about the job that was available. So I think there is something to be careful around framing, why are you looking for this job? But again, it's like, the honest truth was she was desperate to get out of her current job and she didn't really care about the role that was open. And so maybe it was the right decision in that case.
And Brandon added something that kind of flew by in the comments, and I'm just seeing it now. Brandon said, I haven't gotten this feedback, but I've wondered if leading with too much passion comes off Pollyanna-ish. But when you're new from a boot camp or certificate, you don't know what you don't know. So what do you think about someone who looks too passionate about UX?
So I think then there is a question about what do you mean by showing passion? So if you're just Pollyanna-ish and kind of rah, this is going to be the best job ever, I can't wait to get in, obviously it's all wonderful and utopian, well, nobody's going to connect with that. Instead, what I look for actually when I'm hiring is a candidate who is going to ask incisive questions, who has thought about what could be going wrong in a situation and is going to ask me questions that make me go, oh, that's a really good question. Yeah, no, we don't do that very well. And maybe there's something we could do differently, and we can have an actual conversation. So it's not about pretending and rah rah. It's about you're passionate because you care and you want to know how it's actually working. You want to know how you can, get involved and help out. You want to know how you're going to learn on the job, especially if you're from a boot camp, because you're not ready really for a proper job. So how are you going to be supported to get your feet on the ground and understand how things are really going on? I think is a really critical question that you need to ask at that point.
And we do have a couple more questions to get to, but I just want to mention when you say leading with too much passion makes me worried, and I'm just making this up, that when somebody asks you the first question or the second question of the job interview, you're just throwing in UX passion things like, hi, Brandon, tell me about yourself. Oh my God, I'm so excited about UX. I'm being silly now, but tell me about yourself is not yet the time to go into passion about UX. Maybe that's at the end of your story. Or what interested you about this job? Maybe some passion about UX is woven into that story. But I think if you're saying you're leading with it, I think it can, I haven't seen it, I didn't interview you, but I think it has the potential to come off as a little bit forced or oh my God, I better remember to mention how much I care about UX to this person. We get it. You into a boot camp, you care about UX. You applied for the job, you care about UX. You're hoping to do a UX job, you care about UX. You don't have to prove that to me. Again, this is not a criterion that I'm usually looking for from people. I am not gauging how passionate do they seem or how excited do they seem, especially since everybody's different personalities, different cultures, and in some cases different diagnoses and conditions. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know what you sound like. He says totally nailed that impression of me. Oh my God. I'm here, holy fuck. So I would just say just answer the questions normally. I'm not gauging how passionate you are. Some people don't come off very effusive because of their personality or culture or other aspects of themselves. I'm not going, oh, I don't know about that person. They weren't effusive enough. That's... We can tell when you're passionate, and that's fine, but it's like a it's low on the list of what we're looking for. We're really looking for, are you a low ego action hero that I'm going to want to work with 8 hours a day, every day? Are you a nice person I want to talk to? Do you seem thoughtful? Do you answer questions well? Ask questions well. I'm thinking about you more as a person, especially when this is a junior job, and I know you don't have 5 years of experience.
Yeah. Something I'm looking for is, and this is maybe not universal, but your passion for learning more than anything else. So, and that's something that does come across. And a question that I did ask a lot in the previous round of interviews I was doing was, tell me what tabs you've got open in your browser now, or tell me about the last book or video you watched, a book you read or video you watched about design, about research. And I met some people who are like, oh, I've never watched a video or read a book. I don't learn anything. It's like, well, how do you get any better at doing this job then? And that to me is a sign of that's not having passion. Some of the people who are most passionate, exactly as Debbie said, are very calm and quiet in the interview, because you can fake kind of rah passion right there, but you can't fake what effort you've put in to try to get better.
I like it. Okay, we're getting some more questions in, so we're going to jump over to the next one. And Keisha, I've added your question to the end of the list. This one said, can you talk about how to give and receive feedback? Not specifically about design, but any idea being discussed, including potential changes in the company or its direction. Something like, hey, we're going in the wrong direction. Perhaps this isn't feedback, but I hope you understand it.
I mean, that is feedback. And it relates very much to the influence question we had before.
Totally.
When
Almost the
you're
same
standing there
question.
going, yeah, and it is. I think this is the hardest thing with being, especially a researcher, but a designer in general, is you have a particular perspective on the world. You are sort of slightly differently placed than colleagues. Every different role, every discipline has its own way of looking at the business and at its role within the business. And so every discipline will have its way of going, I don't agree with this direction, etc., etc. So this is like the key thing about how to give and receive feedback. I'm going to link. There's a guy called Mike Haber, Mikehaber, who writes a newsletter called Sketchy Systems, and he did this idea of the feedback cafe, where there's a menu of different feedback types that you can choose from. And when you're asking somebody for feedback, you can say, hey, I'd like a number 5 style feedback, please. And then if they give you feedback that's a number 8 or a number 7, then you're free to reject it. Now, my number one rule for feedback is Gaiman's law, which is a quote by Neil Gaiman that I'm sure I mentioned last time I was on here, which is anytime somebody tells you something doesn't work for them or is wrong for them, they're almost always right. Anytime they tell you exactly what's wrong and how to fix it, they're almost always wrong. So this is, yes, you take on board that something's not working, but the solutions they give you, the fixes, the precise details, that's not their job to fix. That's your job to deal with. So that's when I'm seeking feedback on my own stuff, and I do it all the time. That's how I seek feedback. In terms of giving feedback, I'm going to throw over to Debbie, and then I've got something for the how do you raise the flag for like things like potential changes in the company. I'll come back to that after Debbie's had a go.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this, and I always feel like a lot of this is in the delivery, because if you have some what we might call bad news, we're going in the wrong direction, this failed testing, whatever it might be, you have to figure out what communication style works best for the person or the team you're talking to. Once in a while, there's people who like it told straight. Hey, just give it to me straight. In general, most people prefer the soft landing on the cotton balls. And so you have to kind of prepare people a little bit. For example, I'm working now on the research report from our evaluative research. We tested a developer build, which means people have been working a long time on coding this. And then we tested it alongside an Adobe XD file that had an alternate version of the same system, just a different UX design with the same features. And when people saw the first thing, their thought was, this is okay. I don't like this or this or this or this or this. I don't think I can print this. It's laid out a little funny, but I guess this is okay. And then when they saw the second thing, they said, oh my God, this is what I need. Now, we have to tell the team the awkward news that the thing they've been building for months functionally is good, but UX / interactively / appearancely, however you want to call it, probably needs a very different layout. That's not going to be good news. That's going to mean rework for the team and probably delaying some other features they have planned. So I can't just show up and go, hey, we went in the wrong direction, told you so. So we have to make sure that we're saying, stay factual, stay unemotional. I find if you get emotional, people just see or feel the emotions and what you say goes out the window. So you just have to be factual, present it neutrally and say, it was good that when people saw this, there were things that they liked about it. They liked this and this and this. Unfortunately, these other things didn't work for them. But when we showed them the B variation, this was a clear winner for 90% of our participants because of this. Therefore, our strategic suggestion is to keep the best of this, take the best of this, take some advice, make a C version that takes the best of both worlds. Now, that's landing on the cotton ball cloud as best as possible, and I'm just giving you the short version, but that's probably how we'll have to present the more honest and complete version of this has kind of gone in the wrong direction.
Yeah, love that. And the other thing that's hidden in what you're saying is you're not assuming that they ought to do what you think they ought to do. You've presented an option. The team in question can choose now. Well, given that what we've done isn't as good as it could be, do we want to invest extra time to get it to the next level? Or do we want to say, actually, we'll accept it being at the lower level for now,
With
and maybe
certain
we'll
risk.
plan to change it later? And there's risk, yeah. And but it's not our job to tell them what risk they ought to be taking. It's our job to say, this is the risk you're taking. Are you okay with that?
Exactly.
are,
That's what I certainly
we
would say.
shouldn't
Like,
get-
you could keep this layout, but it's basically unprintable. And some people said they wanted to be able to print it or save it as a PDF and send it. And it just, because of the layout is very horizontal, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for printing, whereas the other layout was more vertical, makes more sense for printing, just as an example. So I can't tell them what risks to take or not take. I can't make a decision for a large cross-functional team, but I can empower them to make a more informed decision.
Love it.
Something else you wanted to add before we move to the next question? Because we do have a few more.
Yeah, cool. No, a couple of quick ideas, and I'm sure you've heard me talk about some of these before. So these are two concepts also from the deck. Pivot triggers. These are all, oh no, that's the wrong one. Pivot triggers. This is all about, instead of saying, right now, today, you must decide to kill the project or change the whole plan, you don't tend to get a great result from that. It's putting people on the spot. So what pivot triggers say is, well, let's say we carry on and you think you can turn this around, for instance, or this will be okay when you launch the version that isn't so good, according to our testing. What will you see in a month's time that tells you it's okay? What's the level? You can throw your future self under the bus, stakeholder. I know today's you doesn't want to be thrown under the bus. So throw your future self under the bus by setting a level that you're confident you're going to see in a month's time. And then you kind of signed your name to, well, if we're not seeing the results that we think this is going to get, then maybe it's worth investing in the better version that you showed us. And then you're setting up that decision to be made later. You're softening the blow by putting time in there, making it a future thing rather than a right now stress type, resistance type thing. The other thing that I love that Debbie was doing, which is all this anatomy of an insight, is about creating more options. So helping the team to create more options for what they could do, rather than sticking with, we've got this one option which we kill, or we've got two options we have to decide between A and B. The reality is, no, there's an infinite array of other options that you're not considering when you focus like that. How can you support the team to consider the range of options that are available? Is a much easier way, I find, to influence and to get this sort of direction to change.
Yep, great stuff. Thank you for that. All right, let me put up the next question so we can roll right along. Let's see, we've got a question from the country of Chile. This came from the chat room, so let's put it up. This says, hello everyone from Chile. What is your advice on how to work with the UX research team, if the UX research team is not part of the voice of the customer team? For example, they define the survey questions and the link pages where they will appear on the website. As a result, both teams waste time implementing and redesigning new questionnaires. Work collisions.
Yeah, I think that this is one that's an interesting one, because I know that Debbie and I have radically different experiences in terms of the styles of company that we've worked in, the size of company especially. This feels like something that happens in a rather larger company where people have staked out their territory and it's become a bit of a fiefdom and like a territory battle type thing. In my experience, I've not had this be a particular problem. I did have a while where I joked that my main job was stopping people from doing surveys. But it was possible for me to do that because if I wanted to talk to the VOC team, well, they were just there, and it was 3 people, and I could go and say hello and have a chat with them, and we were helping each other to do the job better. So I don't know if that's the situation that you're in. I think this might be one for Debbie.
Yeah, my thought here is I don't know what you've already tried. So the downside is we don't know what you've already tried. I don't know if you've gone to that team and just said something neutral. Hey, I've noticed sometimes we're working on the same page, or sometimes we're building surveys trying to answer the same questions. I would love to coordinate more so that we're not colliding and we're not overlapping each other's work. If you're running a survey about something, maybe we can get in some of the questions that we need for our research. And if we're running a survey, maybe you can get in some of the questions you're running about your research. But I have the feeling that we're overlapping in places or colliding. Let's start collaborating more on these things. So again, at my current job, there's 2 other teams doing user research. And I've been asked a number of times by stakeholders, is there overlap between what you're doing and what these other people are doing? And the overlap right now seems minimal, but we decided we're going to have a meeting every other week, even just for 15, 20 minutes, to catch up with each other on what we're working on, so that if there is an overlap, cool, let's see if there's any questions we can add to each other's work. And if there's no overlap, cool, we can report to the stakeholders that these projects aren't overlapping. So to me, this is just a bit of a process thing. It's a bit of a communication and collaboration thing. It could be a culture thing, like Tom said. Sometimes it's a bit of a land grab. We're VOC or marketing or CX, and we control the website, so we're going to do this. But I think if you can ask it in a very nice, friendly, collaborative way, and use words like collaboration, communication, partnership, working together, it's very hard for people to go, no, F off. We don't want to talk to you. We don't want to work with you. It would be extremely awkward. And at that point, I'd probably be going to my manager. But I think before you bring in managers and talk to them about where process is breaking down, I would just go to that team and say, gee, I'm and you got to just be soft about it. I'm just worried that there's some overlaps in some of our work. And I just thought we could probably partner up better and coordinate better. So let's talk about what we're each working on and see how we can help each other.
Yeah, actually, now you say that, I love that. And I've done that kind of thing in a bunch of different roles where anyone who is going to be doing customer research in this case, we got together once a week, once a fortnight, that sort of cadence, just for 10, 20 minutes to do exactly that. Just talk about, well, who are you talking to? Oh, but I spoke to them last week. Don't ask them this because we've already talked about that. And then we even got the customer success people involved and the sales people, so that we would, because there was always that fear of overlapping, upsetting a customer because they kept getting pestered by us or asked the same question over and over again. And so everybody agreed they didn't want that to happen. And so it was relatively easy to say, well, let's collaborate, let's be joined up on this. And a short meeting is the easiest way to get started with that. You can try and put written process in place, but it's difficult to know what that needs to be until you've hashed it out a few times in a synchronous type way.
Yeah, thanks for that. Great. We do have another question which came in from Keisha on LinkedIn, and it's a longer one, so let me drop down the font a little bit. And here we go. Keisha says, hi, I have a question. You're in the right place. I'm a career transitioner, former 19 years as a cycle revenue and QA analyst who recently graduated with a master's in HCI with several completed UX research projects as well as volunteer projects. How can I enter the field if I'm rejected due to not having enough industry experience? Personal and volunteer projects aren't truly considered work per feedback. Currently, contract work is asking for mid-level experience as well. Entry level has been listed as wanting 2 to 3 years actual industry experience as well. With that, getting an initial interview has been challenging. Any advice? This is a question we get often, though obviously in different variations and flavors. Tom, your thoughts?
My thoughts are, yeah, it's a really difficult situation to be in. Um, Now, I would say, especially right now, there was it's a bit of a mess in the industry at the moment. From where I'm standing, loads of people have been made redundant. There's just it's a wash with boot camp grads and all that. Yeah, there you go. So it is
It's
tough,
bad.
and there is a certain degree of needing to just keep going for it and patience. Now, what I'd say in your situation is you have industry experience as a QA analyst and cycle revenue. Cycle revenue, and I don't know what cycle revenue is,
Me either.
but it's clearly genuine industry experience. And I bet aspects of that work are absolutely applicable to the HCI role, to the UX role, that sort of thing. So, what I would be looking if I were you is to frame your past experience within the role that you had before, within the framing of UX research. So, what people want to see in your CV is a joined up story that basically says, this is why I'm ready for this role now. And if that includes aspects that aren't directly doing the literal exact role before, that can be okay if you frame it right. So it's about telling the story and joining up the dots for the person who's hiring to show I have got industry experience. The other thing that I've done, I mean, it's difficult if you can't even get an interview, that's hard. But in interview, one thing that I have found incredibly effective is to just call it out early on and say, now, do you have any concerns about me? Or, and then if they answer and they say, well, we're a bit concerned that you don't have enough industry experience, you can tackle it right there and then. Or if they say, no, we don't have any concerns about you, then they can't really come back and say they've got concerns about you later.
I actually have slightly opposite advice, which I know is not going to be good news for our question asker because it's going to be like, well, now what do I do? But not that this person sounds like that. I don't know this person. I'm doing terrible impressions of unknown people today. My concern, so again, it's not that Tom is wrong. It's more that I've seen what Tom is saying taken to a degree that I recommend against. So let's just put it that way. I've seen some people say, I have this previous career and I'm going to try to show you how QA analysis work was really UX. And it was really UX because I had empathy. And it was really UX because I had to care about the user. And we get these kind
I
of
wasn't saying
fluffy.
that.
Yeah, I know you're not saying that. I'm just saying this is when I see people take it to a far
Yeah,
degree, and it's where
very
it
good
kind of
point.
falls
Yeah.
apart for me. Now, again, I think part of what Tom is saying works because you're trying to show maturity in a tech industry. You're trying to show that you get tech because sometimes questions are, how do you work with a cross-functional team? How are you going to work with this person? And that's where you can say, well, given my 19 years in QA, I'm very used to collaborating with engineers, product owners, product managers. Of course, you have to get the interview to be saying those things. So back to that whole problem. There are, by my estimate, and I can't prove this, 800,000 people looking for a UX job. Very often when I go to LinkedIn, there are 6,000 open UX jobs. The math doesn't work. When I'm between jobs, I can barely get an interview. Is that an indictment against me? Does that mean I'm a bad UXer who's never going to work in this industry? No, it's a reflection of what's going on in tech, in jobs, in the economy. So
Yeah.
this is where we unfortunately shouldn't need resilience, but we do need resilience. And we have to figure out what we're going to do. My advice, and it might be unpopular, is chances are you need to eat food and pay your rent. There is no shame in taking a job that isn't your dream job right now. Maybe it's back in QA. Maybe it's something you qualify for just as a placeholder to keep working to see if you can build some of your UX skills into another tech job where you can show it later as some real work experience. But the one thing I would say one of my top concerns right now are all of the people trying to transition into UX, and they're only looking for the UX job. They're not getting interviews, and then they're starting to become anxious, nervous, desperate about their finances, which again is normal. I'm not saying anything negative about that, totally valid. So I don't want to see
We've all been
people
there. It's not good. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to see people straining their mental health, running out of money, etc., because I do see those people in my LinkedIn feed, and it's not that they're not trying hard enough. These are good, talented people, and the jobs aren't there. So number one, it's not you. We're all going through this. And even people who are on my show go through this. People who you think, oh, wow, these are the people I admire. They go through this too. So number one, it's everybody. Number two, take the job you can get during these bad times. I keep reading about how we've got bad times now, and some people are predicting this is going to go on a while and possibly get worse. That means we have to get into a little bit more of a survival mode rather than where's my dream job mode. I've got some dream jobs in my mind and in my heart. They might not be available to me right now. I'm lucky that I found another job that so far I'm loving. Great people doing great work with only one person I don't like, which is a pretty good record for me. So I'm doing pretty well with those numbers. So that's
the dream job is just if you get rid of that person. Then
I won't be able to, and I'm not going to try. But I'm going to just magically hope that person cleans up their act, or stays away from me. I'll take either. But it's still a good job. It's a great job. I found nice people. I'm doing things I like, and so maybe can we find something to keep the bathtub water from running out? And yes, it takes some pride swallowing, and yes, we have to put some of our dreams on hold. In general, I don't like to tell people to put their dreams on hold. I don't want to tell people to settle for less. That's not me. That's not the advice I like to give. But I feel like with the economy and tech where it is now, we have to be a little bit more in survival mode and a little bit less in where's my dream job mode. Tom, how do you feel about that advice? I think it's a little dark and sad.
Dark and sad, but also, yeah, that's heartfelt. That is real. I can second that. Everyone I know who's in UX has had to lower their sights. I know a bunch of people who are in jobs that they don't particularly love. They would move if they could, but they're just going to hold on for now and keep doing it because the options are not there. And I know loads of just astonishingly good people who've written the books that you buy and read about how to do UX, who've been laid off, in the last year. Hey, for example. And then pretty much everyone else who's written a book that I have seen pop up on LinkedIn going, that's me, I've been laid off now. And then they struggle to get jobs. These are people who are bona fide top-level industry experts. I think you're right. It's just the maths doesn't add up. And yeah, we've got to take it. As researchers, we want to work with reality, and we want to make our decisions based on what's possible for us, and not live in dreamland, which is where we sometimes clash with stakeholders. And this is an example of living with reality.
And I think that I've been predicting this for a couple of years. I think it's probably still a year or two off, but I think there will be a correction. I think that when there's 800,000 people that took the Google UX course because they thought UX was going to be a fun, easy to get, high-paying job, when they faced the realities of 2022 and 2023, I think many of them will say, I wonder what else I can do. And I think there is going to be that correction where maybe not necessarily the people who just finished a master's degree in it, but maybe some of the other people who tried other educational routes or self-study routes will say, okay, I tried to get into this and it didn't work. or I tried to get into this and it wasn't for me. I mean, I don't know if Tom's like me, but I had a career before UX. I was working in the New York City music business, and I eventually decided I'm not sure this is for me. Before that, I was a chemistry major in university because I wanted to be a lab researcher. And eventually I said, I don't think this is for me. And I think it's okay to go through UX study, boot camp, school, whatever, and say, you know what, this is for me. I'll take another job for now, but I'm gonna keep applying and I'm gonna get into it as soon as I can. Or I studied some UX, I enjoyed it, it seemed cool, but I'm not sure this is for me. I'm gonna look at some other things.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And there's a bunch, whatever other things you've done before, and UX is one of these, that it might be one of these for you. You can take concepts from them and use them in other places as well. So you can still do UX in a way for another role. It's all possible.
And of course, we wish everybody love and luck in these unfortunate times and situations, but now we must be prudent over everything else. Sorry. Womp womp. Do I have like a womp womp sound now? Because now I feel sad. No, I just have. That's not really the right sound. I need more sounds.
That sounds definitely not the right sound, but I support that. Yeah.
Yeah, let's see. I've got dinosaur. Does that cheer anybody up? I don't know. Oh, the gong. The gong is to remind us to wrap up the show. I didn't set that off. That one's automatic. I've got it programmed. So, Tom, it is time to wrap up. We're almost at an hour, and gosh, I'm always so happy to have you here, and already excited that we're meeting again in 3 months. Though not here live on the stream, we're going to be in a Google Meet. Everybody can find that at cxcc.to/events. That's our new event calendar, which you can subscribe to the whole calendar or RSVP for individual events. And Tom's going to be teaching us in January about how do we know that we've found a real problem, and it's not just a solution looking for a problem.
We never come across those, do we?
Oh my God, the stories. I'm not going to get started. Ow, ow. So, Tom, remind everybody where they can find you and follow you. I'm going to put your card deck URL back on the screen. That was bit.ly-innovation- sorry, that was a slash. bit.ly/innovation- the number 10. And Tom, tell us more about where we can find you and why we want your card deck.
Thank you. Yeah. Why do you want the card deck? I mean, all the stuff that I'm talking about today, much of it is in there. It's got a bunch of cheeky UX research stuff that is parceled up, sometimes to look like slightly different things, but it gives you all the best stuff that I learned in 25 years that I've used to work with various teams, to influence teams, to help shape what's going on, to help guide and lead teams to do stuff that's much more reality-based, much more evidence-based, without bashing them over the head, trying to persuade them that they want to be evidence-based. It's all in that deck. So yeah, I'd love for you to pick up a copy. If you have any questions about it, do just get in touch with me. I'm on LinkedIn, Tom Kerwin. I should be fairly findable. There's not that many of us. So yeah, love to see you there. Also, there's a Substack I have as well, tomkerwin.substack.com. And I write about all sorts of stuff on there. The latest one, I'm doing a little series about why OKRs don't work.
Hooray. I would love to see more about that. So yeah, everybody find Tom, follow his stuff. If you're interested in the Debbie, Delta, CXC, XCC, all the letters universe, check us out at our new Patreon, patreon.com/CXCC. You can join for free, and it's basically my mailing list, or you can join for as little as $1 American a month and get early access to stuff and other cool perks. Of course, subscribe here on the YouTube channel, CX-CC, and don't forget to check our events calendar, cxcc.to/events. For all of the stuff we have coming up, we have a packed calendar through mid-November, and then we're going to go a little bit light until we see Tom again in mid-January, because I just know everybody gets into holiday mode and I can't get their attention. All right. Yeah, no, I don't know about that, but thank you, Tom. Anyway, everybody, be well, be safe, stay frosty, and I would say I would play us out of here, but I turned off the closing music, so there will just be silence and fire. Tom, thanks again, and see you soon. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.